Hello, everyone, and welcome to Boston Balling, your home for all things Boston sports. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, and as a lot of you know, I also host the Daily Locked On Red Sox podcast, so you can check me out there as well. But it's been a really exciting year overall, I would say, minus the Red Sox maybe a little bit in terms of Boston sports. Lots of teams that overachieved. You could make an argument that the Patriots overachieved tremendously. The Bruins even overachieved, I'd say, this year too. And the Celtics, considering the circumstances, I would say definitely overachieved as well. So definitely lots of exciting things this year in Boston sports. And I have a great guest on with me to chat about what turned into a really exciting season for the Boston Celtics. Kayla Burton, who does a tremendous job covering the ins and outs of the Boston Celtics. Great basketball mind. I definitely admire her work and a lot of what she does for NBC Sports Boston, talking about the Celtics on a game-to-game basis. Kayla, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Gabby, thank you so much. Well, first of all, for that intro, but also for having me on. I was messaging. We were messaging back and forth, and it's so funny when you messaged me to be on your podcast. You have no idea. I felt so honored because I listen to you every day. Like every time the podcast comes out, there's two podcasts specifically. Celtics Talk podcast, because that's my guy, Chris Forsberg. You know, we're family here. And then yours, Locked On podcast with the Red Sox, because I'm trying to up my knowledge more so. I know I'm mainly Celtics, Patriots and stuff, but I really am trying to be a consumer of Red Sox stuff. And I listen to you every day. And I'm not like literally yesterday we were just talking about the lack of offense that the Sox are having and runners in scoring position. But what I love about you is that you get what you're talking about. You're very knowledgeable. And on top of that, you make it realistic. You're not trying to blow the whole thing up if the Sox suck or if the offense isn't where it's supposed to be. But you're also like, okay, how, like in what areas can they get better? So you do such a fantastic job. I'm personally honored to be on here. And also I'm excited to dive into this because there is a lot of crossover between maybe what the Red Sox are going through right now and what the Celtics are also going through. So I'm happy to dive into it. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. That was so kind of you to say. I really appreciate you listening and consuming the Red Sox content because baseball's a long season. They play so many games and, you know, it's easy for people to start panicking early on in the season, but we just have to remember there's a lot of season left, but they do need to make some changes if they want to contend, and that's kind of the reality of the situation. And it's interesting because you mentioned similarities with the Celtics, and going into this season for the Celtics, I mean, my expectations were a lot lower than what they actually showed because, you know, without Jayson Tatum, they lost some other key pieces from that championship squad. And it just felt like it was a bit of an overhaul and, you know, maybe a little bit of a roster rebuild, kind of a quote unquote gap year, as people are describing it on social media, in terms of where the Celtics team was at. Because they were like, well, they're not going to contend this year anyway, you know, let's use this as a rebuild year, see what maybe some of these other guys have that haven't gotten a lot of opportunities in the past and kind of see what we're working with moving forward. Obviously, they, at least in my view, exceeded my expectations by far. You know, landing the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, had a disappointing ending to the season in terms of the way that playoff series went. But, you know, what are your thoughts on generally how things went for the Celtics this year compared to your expectations going into it?
For sure. I think you nailed it. I think, you know, we have to look at the whole grand scheme of everything. I think we're coming off of a fresh collapse in the first round to the 76ers, a team that they were up 3-1 in franchise history. They've never been up 3-1 and then lose it ever. So it's fresh, right? I think like the natural Bostonian fan reaction and Celtics fan reaction is like, what happened? This is insane. Blow it up. Like, you know, now JB is making comments, getting in a battle with Stephen A. Smith. And it's, oh, we're not like, it's just everyone's losing their minds. And it makes sense, right? Like, look, we're a winning city. But let's just start with kind of the expectations and the barometer of where this whole season was headed in. And I think that they've like far exceeded expectations. Even Brad Stevens, who I feel like has the most rational pulse of life, but also like the Celtics in general. Like when you think you're about to lose your mind, just listen to Brad Stevens and he'll be realistic, but also make sense of it all. And I feel like his press conference really just nailed it. Like I feel like he understood where the team is at, where everyone is at as a fan pulse, and also where the organization needs to head towards. So I think like to start it off, look, no Jayson Tatum. All the questions were going to be what's just Jaylen Brown's team. What is he going to look like? He exceeded expectations. I think he really proved to be that number one guy, at least in the regular season. You look at the postseason and then you can argue, all right, Jaylen Brown and this team has work to do. And I think that showed itself in the postseason. Even with Jayson Tatum being back, I think it was obviously disappointing, him getting injured. It was disappointing in game 5 when they completely, game 5. I was like, that was one that they were at home. They had a chance to win it. And that would have changed the trajectory of like, okay, they could have seen the Knicks in round 2, but they go back to Philly and Jayson Tatum gets hurt. And it's just like they were playing scared at that point. They go back to Philly where they already handled business 2 games in a row, beating them. Joel Embiid comes back, and then just the whole series shifts. They come back and they played scared a little bit. I think Joel Embiid did completely change like the entire series, but I also think it exposed the Celtics in a lot of ways. I think I'm going all over here right now, but I think in total of like this, in totality of the season, I think they did a great job. I think Joe Mazzulla pushed the right buttons with Luka Garza, asking, guys to step up, like the Jordan Walshes of the world, the Ugo Gonzalez is like, we're starting to see that they can be a playoff kind of team. The thing is they need, in my opinion, they need a big man. I think Nemish Queta developed incredibly this season. This guy, I didn't know what to think of Nemi. Like, I was like, oh, a season ago, he was hardly in the picture. Here he is, being the number 1 starting center. That's like being great in the pick and roll. He's being great around the rim, able to finish better in years past. Yes, he got into early foul trouble in that series, and that's where I think he was exposed. But what a development we saw out of Queta. And then Luka Garza was kind of that 1-2 punch. Anthony Simons was just electric in terms of scoring, and they had to trade him. And I understood that trade. I think it was brilliant of Brad Stevens to say, look, we need a big man. Now, Vooch, I don't think panned out to be the guy with this specific group. He didn't even play game 7, and that was a coach's call. And I understand. I think that like defensively he had his struggles, but I think it's a clear intel that in order for them to be successful, and we're seeing it in this OKC Thunder series, or excuse me, OKC Spurs series, that a big man is needed. That 1-2 punch is needed. And I think that's something that the Celtics are lacking right now and got exposed in the series. So I know I went all over the map there. I think, look, if you're trying to figure out how to feel with the Celtics moving forward, I think that they're a team that if they get the right personnel, they can make a real run. And I'm curious to see what they do with the Jays. Do they keep the Jays? Do they trade Jalen for Giannis? We can dive into all of that. But they're in a good spot. I wouldn't hit the panic button at all. In fact, I think that you should be encouraged, especially because Jayson Tatum didn't even get a full season. And he was still showing, okay, he had no problem being back.
Yeah, I mean, the way that Jayson Tatum just went about his business this season and like all the talk of, is he even going to come back this season? And, the rumblings of there's a chance that he recovers quickly than they're used to seeing people recover from that type of injury. There was a lot of excitement and buzz surrounding, well, will we see Jayson Tatum at some point this year? Then he comes back, and I felt like him coming back was at a good time because it wasn't right when the playoffs started. It was a little bit early enough to where the team could hopefully get reacclimated to Jayson Tatum being back. Because I know he mentioned something about, I don't know if me coming back is a good idea because they've been playing so well. I don't want to break that chemistry that they have going. So I did think, if he comes back, it kind of has to be before the playoffs because you don't want it to be these guys haven't played with him this year at all. And then all of a sudden they're in a playoff environment and they have to get Tatum back into the mix. So I did like that he was able to come back before that. And if you really think about what Jayson Tatum was able to do when he came back, still playing like a superstar after everything he had been through and after all the talk of, this is unprecedented for somebody to come back that quickly. I mean, he deserves a ton of credit for just going out and just making it look like he didn't really skip a beat when he came back, truly.
This dude was getting double-doubles. He had in the first 5 games, he was averaging double-doubles. And I'm like, what? And so, I think, man, I was also, I thought Tatum really showed so much vulnerability in terms of this comeback, not only the journey and the whole docuseries, but also like when what was it? It wasn't First Take. It was with Ryan Clark on his podcast, but basically saying, this was the most vulnerable part that I think he said in terms of the comeback. Him saying, you mentioned it. I don't want to disrupt what we have going on already. I don't, in a negative way. And then that's when Joe Mazzulla was like, if he's going to disrupt anything, it's only going to be in a positive way. And that's literally what he did until he got hurt or had that kind of like thigh, issue or injury. He looked incredible. And the best part was he fit in with what was already going on. He fit in with what he kind of knew and had the humility to say, okay, one, I'm still Jayson Tatum. So like, let's not forget that. Two, I understand that my team also has a new thing going with Jaylen Brown kind of being at the helm. And he played into that. I felt like what I noticed about Tatum being back, once he got comfortable and wasn't playing timid or he had to get his footing back and the conditioning and even just like diving after loose balls. That was Scal and I were talking about, like, he's not fully there yet. That was in the first couple of games or first couple of weeks that he was back. And then once the playoffs happened, he started diving after loose balls, attacking the rim, kind of like, once he saw the ball going through the net, like able to just really be his true self and without hesitancy. And even better, I think we saw Jayson Tatum that wasn't forcing things. I think last year and even seasons ago, he's always had to carry this team on his back. And now you get an improved Jaylen Brown who's carrying this team into the postseason. Jayson Tatum, game by game, is getting better and better, but he's also not forcing things. Like, I feel like before he would jab, and maybe like attack and do a kind of that mid-range, like fadeaway shot that would work and then not work. But now it's like he just was reading the defense and allowing it to come to him and able to move the ball when he needed to. I think what we're seeing is a Jayson Tatum who also had time. Like, when you're injured, you're being forced to watch the game. And so you're almost watching film night in and night out. And I know he's pissed off because he wants to be out there, but it actually may have served him immensely because he was able to just watch and see, like, he gets to see his teammates being like, wouldn't have done that there. I would attack here. This is what you got to do. I would do this. And now he's able to apply that. So I think, like, sometimes when you're injured, it's a blessing in disguise. No one wants to see you go through that injury, especially rupturing your Achilles. But maybe this added a layer to his game that I don't know if he would have gained if he were to not get hurt. So I think, like, yes, you want to see him healthy. I am curious to know if, internally, if Mazzulla or Stevens or any of these guys, that kind of the front office guys that were able to decide, even Nick Sang has done an incredible job, Jayson Tatum's trainer, of getting him up to speed. Like, hats off to him. I wonder if they pushed his minutes a little bit. And I don't know. I don't know if they're, because it started off being like, I think 22, like 17 to 22. And then it started to ramp up and all of a sudden he was 30 and 40, like it was nothing. And so I do wonder if they got a little overly excited and said, okay, because it's playoff time. Like, they want to play him. I think ultimately they did a great job with him. I just wonder, like, if they should have, like, I don't know, they just tempered it a little bit, because that when he had that tightness in his thigh, I was thinking, like, maybe we're pushing it a little bit. I don't know the answer to that. He said he could have played round 2, which obviously everyone would have loved to see his just going back at it with the Knicks, especially with how emotional that would have been, considering he ruptured his Achilles in that series. But all in all, people should be really excited about Jayson Tatum in this next season. Of course, if healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone wanted that rematch with the Knicks. Like, everyone was itching to be like, we want our revenge on the Knicks from last year. But I mean, the Knicks are playing really good basketball right now. It's almost like they clicked at the right time. So I'm interested in seeing, how things do play out for them moving forward. I mean, you mentioned that OKC Spurs series. I mean, that game last night was crazy.
Oh, gosh.
So I was so entertained. I was like, I want 7 games of this, because like, if this is how every game of this series goes, like, I just want more and more and more of that. And I feel like that series is going to be fantastic.
It's unbelievable. And it's kind of scary if you're the East. Like, there was a meme of Drewski and whoever, I forget, sitting on the bench, like, looking at each other like, bro, if you're the Eastern Conference right now, if you are the Knicks and Detroit looking at the Spurs and OKC, you're like, oh shoot. Like, we got our work cut out for us, because these two teams, OKC with SGA and Victor Wembanyama, with how they are playing and matching up together, going into double OT last night, was outrageous. And Wemby, this man is in his 3rd year in the NBA.
Unbelievable.
He can shoot the 3 lights out. He's getting killed around the rim and still being able to finish. And what I love about him, he's so young in this league and he doesn't complain. He's not going to the refs. He gets ejected a couple of games ago. And he kind of looked at himself like, I love, there was he asked his teammate, like, what happened? I got ejected? Oh, but he's just so well composed and lethal. Like he's unbelievable. And I think this specific series, man, I feel like the winner of this series is going to take all. I really do. I think whether it's Spurs or OKC, like they're just so hard to take down. Detroit and New York, I mean, hats off. I hate giving credit to New York because you know how we are.
That, yeah.
I do. And they always tweet at me every time I mention their name. So be prepared.
Really?
Oh yeah. New York basketball. Like Chris and I are we got beef. But I mean, hats off to New York because Jaylen Brunson has been carrying this team and they just look like a well-composed team. One of the things that we were talking about on NBC Sports Boston, even just in our email threads, is does this expose the Celtics more with how OKC and the Spurs are playing, or even New York? And I think it does. I think it's not alarming, but it just goes to show, if I'm Brad Stevens, I'm like, man, I really got to put the right roster together, because if our goal is to not only get back to the finals, but win the championship title, what kind of player personnel do we need? And I think their priority has to be a big man. I think it has to be, I know we talked about Giannis. I don't love the trade for Jaylen Brown. I know he's a hot topic right now, going off on Twitch and doing play-by-play about Stephen A. Smith's comments, but I still, which I have my own, thought process on, I still think that they need someone like a Giannis, but I don't think it has to be a Giannis. I think it can be a guy that just fits the role, fit like a Bam Adebayo. So someone who kind of
Bam would be fantastic. I don't think they'd ever move him, but I think he would be a great fit for this team. He was actually somebody that I mentioned right when the Celtics season ended, and I was like, it's clear they need a big man. I was like, I feel like Bam would be a fit.
Exactly, because someone who could fit into the Joe Mazzulla offense and role, and also allows the stars to be the stars. The problem with the Giannis is Jayson Tatum says two things that he wants at the end of the season, wants for next year: to win another title and to be finals MVP. I don't know if you bring in a guy like Giannis with the ego that he has, and obviously the health issues that he's had before, if the egos will blend well. I don't know because then all of Boston may get up for Giannis and take some of the heat away from JT, or maybe it could go one of two ways, right? And I think it's a little bit less of a risk and more of a benefit if you get a guy like Bam, who is not going to be the star of the team, but is going to be that 1-2 punch in the pick and roll. Neemias Queta can also learn from a guy like Bam, in terms of discipline. I think Nimi was getting exposed defensively with all the foul trouble. You got to learn to sell it in this league a little bit. So I just think you're right. A guy like Bam, Jalen Johnson, I think would be a great add too. He's a Duke guy. I don't know if they get him, but just someone who's kind of that role player, big man, I think would be the perfect get for the Celtics moving forward.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously there's been a lot of talk about splitting the Jays up, and I feel like Tatum and Brown have really learned how to play together. The guys won a championship together. It's I feel like their roles when they're both healthy and they're both playing kind of fit them really well. And you mentioned Jaylen Brown and the role he took on this season. And I think that was one of the biggest reasons why I was a little bit hesitant to, rate the Celtics as high as they ended up being when it came to the end of the season and them being the 2 seed and all that. I was like, they might make the playoffs. They're still really talented, but I was thinking, maybe get into the play-in or something and just be a team that, kind of floats in the talk, but maybe isn't a legitimate contender. And them being where they were was amazing. And, I think the biggest thing was, can Jaylen Brown step up? I think that was a big question going into the season was, can he take on that role that they're going to be missing with Tatum out? And, Jaylen deserves so much credit for the season he had. And obviously there were talks about him being in the MVP discussion. Do you feel like he should have won MVP, or do you think that that was something that ended up going in the right direction the way that it played out with SGA getting it again? Because obviously, when you think of the word valuable, I mean, this team would not have been where they were without Jaylen Brown this year. I'll get you right back to my chat with Kayla Burton from NBC Sports Boston. But ball players, if you're serious about your game, it's time to swing with the best. Tater Baseball designs premium wood bats, training gear, apparel, and accessories built for players who want to perform at the next level. Trusted by hundreds of pro players and built from a passion for the game, Tater combines elite craftsmanship with modern performance. From the cage to game day, Tater helps you train harder, swing faster, and stand out. Gear up today and join the thousands of players choosing Tater Baseball.
Period. And Gabby, you nailed it. I think it's such a great question because do I think he should have won MVP overall in the league? No. And I say that just because of their postseason collapse. I think like he would, if he could have just, and I know that's asking a lot out of a guy who's done so much in the regular season, averaging about 30 points a game, like his assists to rebounding or to, you know, just overall player being that kind of 1-2 player, both offensively and defensively. Like, I think he took his game to a whole nother level with not a whole lot around him. And I'm saying, I'm not like discrediting the rest of the roster. Like, I just think there were so many question marks and newly experienced kind of guys like Luka Garza, Ugo, Jordan Walsh, Sam Hauser's known for the three, Peyton Pritchard, you weren't sure. Like, Derrick White didn't have such a great year. So Jaylen, there was a lot more asked of Jaylen. So I think if you are looking at the complete roster and his role in that, I mean, definitely MVP conversation. And I'm glad he rounded out 6. And I think SGA, the thing about SGA is like, one, he does have the talent around him, so it's going to make him look better, right? But he also is just incredible. His mid-range game, his consistency from downtown, his ability to get the other guys going, and what really separates him is his playoff push. And like right now, you're talking about a guy who's going to go probably back-to-back in the finals and may win it back-to-back. So like, yes, I think SGA and even Victor Wembanyama, like those guys deserve to be in the top conversation when it comes to MVP. I don't think Jaylen's far off at all. Because of the roster, because of his ask. But I just think right now the next step and the next level is going to be him alone. And I don't know if we're going to see that again. It's going to be dependent on if he's back here with Tatum or if he decides, you know, if they trade him maybe to Atlanta or wherever and he has to be that number one guy, how far he can take the guys around him into the postseason. That's where I think he'll start to really, you know, be a true contender in terms of winning it. But like you said, I don't think it's a discredit at all to what he did this season. Like, look, right now, everything is hot and topic. You know, the topics are hot where everyone's talking about, does he get traded? Does he want to be here? I know he said it verbatim, but, you know, him going back and forth with Stephen A and stuff, it does kind of expose him in terms of everyone kind of questioning, like, why is he mad? Like, is he upset? Does he want to be here? I would love for Jaylen Brown to still be here. I think that I would love to see the Jays like really make another push because the thing is too, we're seeing what we're going to see next year. Let's say if Jaylen and Jayson stay here as Boston Celtics, you're going to see a new duo that we really haven't seen before. I know these two have been together for the past 9+ years, right? But at the same time, you haven't seen this version of Jaylen Brown coming off of the season that he just had and a restored Jayson Tatum. Like, this is going to be a different combination. And I think for them to even get a taste of it in the postseason, even though they collapsed against the Sixers, they still were able to work together. And I think, you know, the whole question, all the topics were, all right, Jayson Tatum's back. Uh-oh, what is this going to look like? Is there going to be drama? Are there going to be 2 number ones or can they play together? They can play together pretty well. It's just now they got to have the complete roster and play defense against a guy like Joel Embiid who just tore him up. And then Paul George also was playing like he was playing back in his OKC days. Like, he just looked ridiculous. So I think if they give it a chance, and I think I can't tap into Brad Stevens' minds because he's so genius and who knows what he's going to do. But I just feel like he would want the Jays to stick together and then add a big man. And I think that could be a great recipe for a title run. I really do. I think Jaylen deserves all the credit. I know he's running his mouth right now on Twitch, but like, I hope people don't let that discredit from all that he has done this season. Like, he proved it. He proved it. And now it's about, I just wonder, does he want to win another title in Boston being with Jayson Tatum as kind of that 1-2 punch? Or does he want a team for himself where he's just the true number one guy? I think that's something that I try to wrap my mind around. I'm not too sure yet about.
Yeah, because it's hard because you don't want to do something so drastic that you're basically tearing the team apart and then you're risking throwing off chemistry. Like you mentioned with Giannis, I mean, that's a hit or miss move to make. Like you don't want to put all of your eggs into that basket, get rid of, everything it would take to get Giannis here, which obviously would be a haul. And then if Giannis and Tatum aren't meshing together, and then it looks like a situation where the Celtics maybe just didn't benefit from it. Whereas, you could still get the necessary piece that you need, but feel like you're keeping a lot of your core intact. And that feels more along the lines of something that Brad Stevens would probably want to do, because I feel like he understands that chemistry is a huge thing in this game. And you don't want to just go and make a move that, is that drastic and risk it maybe not working. And I feel like Tatum and Brown at this point, like that duo together, that's what won them a championship a couple seasons ago. And it's hard. I mean, if Jaylen doesn't want to be here, obviously that's a different conversation. But if that's all just smoke and mirrors and he does want to be here, then I don't know that Brad Stevens would be willing to necessarily break that up, because you look at Jayson Tatum and where he's at, and obviously he didn't play game 7 against the Sixers. How much do you think that played a factor in kind of their downfall in this series against Philly? Because if he was feeling that pain in game 6 too, why do you think they maybe had him play game 6 and then in game 7 they were like, all right, he can't play now? Like, do you think they felt like we can still win this game without him, so we want him to be healthy for the next series?
I do think so. It was so weird, right? Because
it was
7, you have Joe who's coming out with the starting lineup with Ron Harper Jr., Luka, and I laugh because I just like, this blows my mind.
Like, what are we doing?
And it's such a Joe Mazzulla move, right? Because he is the type of guy that's like, I'm gonna throw like the ultimate curveball at you guys, and like we're gonna win with 3 guys in a rotation that we've never seen, even in a starting lineup before, play together. And obviously it didn't work. I don't think them starting was the reason why they lost. I think yes, they dug themselves in a hole. They were, Philly was up 11-3, and it was just like really hard to come back from that. I think in regards to Jayson Tatum, when you're playing, I think when Joel Embiid returned, it did shift everything. I think that game 5 again, like JT was playing, they had a terrible fourth quarter. I believe they only scored 11 points in the fourth quarter in game 5. They had to go back to Philly. So I think that game alone right there made them realize, like, they looked at themselves and said, how the heck are we going back to Philly after having such a collapse? We could have easily won it here, and then we can push on to round 2. And I think that changed the narrative. And then, so I don't know what the attitude is like. I can't imagine it was like super exciting going back and playing in front of a Philly crowd that's yelling, "We want Boston." And everyone's like, now, oh shoot, like playing a little bit timid. And that's what they did. They looked terrible in game 6. I mean, game 6, I've never seen the Celtics look so, just the chemistry was off. They were playing scared. The ball movement was bad. Like they were getting killed on the glass, and specifically offensively, Tyrese Maxey, PG, and like Joel Embiid just ate them. They ate them apart. They tore them apart. And then to put the icing on the cake, Jayson Tatum, doesn't play the fourth quarter because he's injured. So I just think going into game 7, it was weird to me that Jaylen Brown didn't find out, according at least to what he said, 45 minutes prior to the game, he found out that JT is not going to play. So I'm like, okay, well, so if he didn't find out that Jayson Tatum wasn't going to play 45 minutes prior to the game, he must have not known the starting lineup either. And then on top of that, you find out that you got, hey, we're going to like totally change this thing up. We got Baylor Shireman, Ron Harper Jr., Luka Garza, JB, and who am I missing? Was it Sam who was in it? No, Sam. Yeah. Sam, I think bench. It was Nimi.
Oh yeah.
No, Nimi didn't start. Anyway, 3 of the guys.
Wait. Can you go through that again? So you had
Nimi was benched. It was Ron Harper Jr.
Yeah.
Luka Garza, Baylor Shireman, Derrick White, Jaylen Brown. That was the starting 5 in game 7. That rotation as a starting group has never stepped on the floor together as a starting group. And you saw in the first quarter, it was like 10. I remember cutting up film, 10 minutes and 14 seconds in the first quarter. Jaylen Brown is dribbling on the right side. Ron Harper Jr. cuts underneath the hoop. JB thought like everyone was rotating, and he throws it to Sam Cassell, who's the assistant coach. Yeah. Like he just throws it out of bounds. Yeah, and so right there, it just shows like there's no chemistry within this group. They're all good players, but I just think that wasn't personally. I thought I liked it at first. I was like, oh, this is kind of sick. Like they can win this thing with this, kind of headline. But I just don't think it was the right time to make a move like that because it seemed very desperate. And with Jayson Tatum not being in the mix, look, I'm not Nick saying I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to be able to say I'm never going to get mad at a player. If they really can't go, they can't go. And I know there's a lot of comparisons of like, well, Kobe would have done it and this and that.
Yeah,
like,
yep.
There is a little passion behind that being like, it's game 7, wake up, But at the end of the day, I didn't think that they wanted it as badly as Philly did as a complete group from the coaching staff all the way down. I think, and Brad Stevens said that. He was like, all credit to Philly. They wanted it more and they showed it. And so, yes, if Jayson Tatum was out there, would it have changed the narrative? I totally think so. I'm really shocked to believe that they would have said, oh, they can win this with that. Like, it's game 7. They already lost the past couple, game 5 and game 6. So, like, I don't know if they were super confident being like, we got this in the bag. And if they were,
they couldn't have. There's no way they could have thought that. You know what I mean? Like,
that's why Tatum was like, truly, I think he just was hurt and they were having to figure it out. But I don't know. It was such like
it was weird.
Tossed up the ball by having that starting group. And I get like trying to really change it up, but I clearly it didn't work out. So I don't know. I think Jayson would have definitely would have changed it up. I just like Philly from game 5 on wanted it more and they showed that.
Yeah, the intensity was definitely there with Philly, and it just wasn't really there with the Celtics nearly as much. I was like, why do I feel like I'm watching a game right now and these guys just don't want it? Like, I feel like I'm sitting here like tense, like yelling at my TV, and I'm like, I don't feel like that same energy is being projected onto these players right now. Like, I feel like they're kind of just like going through the motions, and obviously, that starting 5 in game 7 is definitely a factor in that. These guys probably feeling like, well, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, we're not used to this group, which is fair, but like, I just didn't get the sense that they really wanted to be there. And I think game 5, I felt really nervous after that game because I was like, I feel like this was when they had to win it. I was like, I feel like now all the momentum is on Philly's side, significantly more pressure on the Celtics. And like now they have to go back to Philly, which is a really hard environment to play in if you're a visiting team. And like, Embiid even said after the series, like, I was tired of losing to them. So he had added motivation to beat the Celtics. And it just felt like that added motivation really shined through with that team that we just didn't see from this Celtics team. And it's definitely disappointing because, obviously everybody wanted to see them play the Knicks again, but it really is almost a good thing. I think the way that it ended in a way, because it'll force Brad Stevens to really look at this roster and say, okay, like, obviously we weren't where we thought we were. Like, I think during the regular season, this team looked like it was closer than it was. And then you saw in the playoffs the weaknesses, and they got exposed in a lot of areas. And I think that's where Brad can now really say, okay, this is what we need to improve this roster. But, Joe Mazzulla had a great season overall coaching and being able to work with this roster. But how much blame do you think he deserves for the way that series went down? Because it really felt like there was just a complete lack of adjustments and just in general in terms of the offensive game plan. And when things weren't working, they weren't really moving away from that. And it felt like they kept forcing up threes. And we saw this in game 7 too. I mean, they kept chucking up threes and they were missing them. And that stretch late in the game where they kept missing all those threes, like, could have completely changed the way this game went. And I feel like Philly was more capable of making adjustments throughout the series and the Celtics didn't. So I am curious your thoughts on, like, where Joe comes into play there and how much blame he deserves for all of that.
Yeah, I think Joe and any head coach, honestly, kind of in this group and making a playoff run, whether they win and deserves the credit or whether they lose and deserves the blame. Like either way, it's on. He knows that too. Like, he does deserve some of the blame for sure, a lot of it. But I also think he also deserves a lot of the credit for what he did in the regular season. Like, I think both things can be true, right? I think he pushed the right buttons in the regular season, had to work with kind of the roster that he got. Then you trade Anthony Simons, you acquire Vooch, and trying to get Vooch going and acclimated, then Vooch gets hurt. So that delays the process. And then you get to the series and, you know, like Nemish Queta is getting in foul trouble early. And we mentioned the 3-point shooting. So like, I don't mind. The Celtics are a 3-point identity team. I don't mind that. Where I get irritated or I would like to see something being changed is when the 3 ball is not going in, there needs to be a gray area. It doesn't need to be black or white. I don't think you need to live or die by the 3. Can you be a 3-point identity team? Yes, but you can also create this gray kind of area and avenue where it's like, okay, the 3 is not going in. We got to get to the rim. And in the fourth quarter, you know, it was like 99-96. And I believe the Celtics took 10 shots.
Yeah.
It's all 10 field goals and 8 of them being 3s. And so for me, that is on the coach. That is on the coach to say, yo, we need to work it inside. And if we don't have the personnel, they didn't play Vooch. So clearly Joe Mazzulla didn't trust the group that he has in game 7. And I don't think, you know, Vooch was not performing all that well against the 76ers too. So I can understand that. But it also just showed the lack of trust with like Nemish Queta being out there because he kept getting in foul trouble early. So I think it was really like the Celtics got really exposed game 7. And I do think that falls on Joe Mazzulla because ironically, even when they went with a bizarre, jarring rotation to start, they still cut it to 2 and 1 in the fourth quarter. And so that's on the coach to put the play. I mean, it's on the players to score. But if you're not making the 3, you got to find a way to work it inside. You got to get to the rim. You got to get the mid-range game going. Like there has to be an adjustment, and that has to be a timeout called saying like, look, we're not taking a 3 unless it's wide open. You need to work it inside. And so that's where I do think he got out-coached. And it's something for him to learn too. Like, yes, does he deserve the credit along with the team that surrounded him in the 2024 championship run? Absolutely. But now they got to move forward. Like now I do, you know, the conversation has been, is Joe Mazzulla on the hot seat? And I would say yes. I think he's a great coach. I think he's the right coach for this team. And a lot of people would disagree with me on that. But I think he gets the best out of his players. I just wonder if he's willing to adjust and not prove like, no, this is how we're going to do it. If he's willing to have that conversation and listen and kind of say, all right, my way to a degree may have not worked in terms of like, we are going to live and die by the 3. Let's try to work like, you know, a mid-range area in those specific situations. Now we did kind of like wink say postseason, and Brad even owned his part of this too, but being like, we need the right player personnel, we need the right roster. And so I don't think that like Nemish Queta matched up against Joel Embiid is going to be like Nemish Queta, as I mentioned, has grown tremendously around the rim, scoring offensively, but you need a real big man to like trust that you can work it inside, go in and get the and one or get to the line. I don't think they have that right now. I don't think Garza is that guy. I don't think Nemish Queta is that guy yet. And Vooch, they don't trust because they benched him. So I get why Joe Mazzulla was like, we don't have the personnel to like go up and score against Joel Embiid. So I can understand that like he's playing to what he's got, but I still think at the end of the day, you're up 3-1 in a series. There's no excuse. You've done this all season long without Jayson Tatum. And this is not the Knicks. Like this is a playing team. It's 76ers that didn't have Joel Embiid half of it. So that's why I really blame specifically, yes, Joe, but also like game 5 and the whole team too. I think they had it they thought they had it in the bag. They should have had it in the bag and they let it slip. And it is that game 7 switch. Like, of course you have to blame the coach for kind of changing up the rotation the way he did. It could look, if it worked, if they were to win, Joe Mazzulla would be hero of a coach. Oh my God. That was the best move in Boston. Everyone would be like, he's genius. He just was outminded everybody and played 3 guys that Philly didn't see coming. And unfortunately that wasn't the case. So now he looks like the quote unquote idiot. I don't think he is. I think he really is a great coach for this group. I just think that there's some postseason work as a coach that he needs to do.
Yeah, I mean, imagine like what the conversation would look like if it was like, oh, he started Ron Harper Jr. and they won game 7, like they won the series, and then they moved on to the Knicks. Like he'd be like praised as like this hero, you know?
You know what it reminds me of, Gabby? Because I know that like you do a lot, obviously like, a ton of Red Sox coverage. It's kind of like if the Red Sox were to average, what is it, 4.5
to
runs, five
Yeah.
now, 5 runs per game. Like their record would be entirely different.
Way different.
Way different. So that's the thing. It's not like the Celtics or the Red Sox are like that far off. You talk about like they just need their offense. They just need to get runners in scoring position and to have a power bat. It's kind of like the Celtics just need that maybe like guy, like that front court guy, like our power bat or the Celtics power bat would be like a big man down low that they can work the game inside so they don't have to rely on the three. They can work it inside a little bit. And I just think that they're one player personnel, one like position off from like changing this whole thing. It's very similar between the Sox and the Celtics.
Hope you're enjoying my conversation with NBC Sports Boston's Kayla Burton. But coaches, athletes, and parents, simplify your season with Destination Athlete. From custom team uniforms and spirit wear to fundraising, equipment, and online team stores, Destination Athlete is your one-stop shop for all things sports. Their team of local experts works directly with programs to save time, reduce stress, and deliver high-quality gear your athletes will love. Whether you're outfitting one team or an entire organization, Destination Athlete helps your program look and perform its best. Visit destinationathlete.com to get started today. Yeah, no, I definitely feel that way too. Like it's going to seem like based on the way that things went for the Celtics that maybe they're further off than that, but like it really does feel like, I mean, this is a talented group with a lot of the pieces still, and we saw that come into play here too. But I know there was a lot of talk of, oh well, we shouldn't have traded Simons because we could have used his shooting in the playoffs. But like, in the grand scheme of things, I understand why they made the trade when they made it, because the big man was the priority at the time. And obviously things with Vooch were unfortunate, but they couldn't have predicted like the way that he was actually going to pan out. I mean, people knew that there were struggles defensively for him, and that was definitely something that I was concerned about when they brought him to Boston. But like, I can't really fault Brad for trading Simons for an area of need that they had at the time, especially because he probably kept in mind at the time, like we might be getting Tatum back this year.
That was the whole
shooting too. So he might have thought that would also like offset that,
Yeah, that was the whole move. I mean, he knew that they were getting Tatum back. So they were like, okay, who's going to be that 1-2 combo for Tatum when he comes back? And so they needed Vooch, who's experienced, a big man, trying to make a run in the playoffs himself. I just think like the hand injury that he suffered or set him back a little bit. It was hard to trade the Inferno too, because Anthony Simons was like,
I loved him.
So fun. Like I was at the game where he went off against Orlando with the career high or season high, I believe, with 38 plus. And he was great with this group. I just don't know. And I think Brad thought the same thing. I just don't think you can only play small for so long when you have guys. Like imagine if you were to get to even against the Knicks, against Karl Anthony Towns, or go all the way against one of these two teams, an OKC or the Spurs. Like, what are you going to do when you have Anthony Simons, Derrick White, Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Mimi against Victor Wembanyama? Like,
yeah, and you feel a little scary.
That 3-point shooting better be like 80% or above, because it's going to be a problem. And Brad is smart enough to realize and recognize like we need a big man. And obviously, I don't think this one worked out, but I mean that's part of it. He's probably looking at himself in the mirror, being like, "Dang, right idea, wrong trade."
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. And that's where I'm at with that too. Just not necessarily the right player, but the idea of what he was doing was correct, because that was what they needed at the time. And, the need still remains of a true big man. And so keeping all of that in mind, like what would your ideal off season look like in terms of, additions and, who do you think we may see potentially be on the move from a player perspective if they're going to trade for somebody?
I really look at it as like two options. I think either Brad makes a big splash. It kind of reminds me after the 2023 season collapse to Miami, like that series was so bad. And what did Brad do? He made a huge splash, got Drew Holiday, got Kristaps Porzingis, and that was big. Marcus Smart's gone. So like that, everyone was like, oh shoot, Brad is really shaking things up. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brad were to shake things up and trade. I think it depends on what the real feeling of Jaylen Brown and this team feels like what behind closed doors is he really feeling and saying, and having a conversation to Brad about wanting to be here, about wanting to be the number one guy and doing that elsewhere, or running it back and trying to win a title. So I think it starts there. It starts with Jaylen and what that really looks like. I could see Jaylen going and Brad having to trade like a couple future first rounders to get a guy like Giannis. And that would be a risk, but I think it could go one of two ways. It could be really exciting and it could be like the perfect recipe for another title run. Or it could be the risk that it's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's starting Garza, Ron Harper Jr., and Bale. I don't think it's like that type because you have a MVP. But it's a splash, right? So it could work. It could also be, ego-based where you got Jayson Tatum and Giannis, who are both like big egos and both want to be the number one guy, and it could be bad. The other thing is, too, I could see, and personally what I would like lean more towards is keeping the Jays together. And I know that's a risk, too, a little bit now, because now you got a little bit more of an ego out of Jaylen Brown. Like, he's talking a lot. He's trying to control his own narrative. He proved that he's that number one guy. And now he's walking with a little bit of a different swag, a more vocalized swag, I would say, which could create some harm for the team. Mm-hmm. But let's say you keep the Jays together, maybe Derrick White has to go. And I think, the duo between Jayson and Derrick, like, those two are yin and yang. And so, like, I think Jayson Tatum will be fine no matter, like, if he were to have anyone by his side or no one. Like, he's going to be him. But it's just, like, the Celtics are so dependent on the chemistry of this team. And we got to see the inside of that with Catan, that board game that they would travel with that was, like, the running joke. Like, they are so fun. It's so fun. And they're such a close-knit team. So you don't want to mess up the flow of that. And Brad is really, really good being a former head coach of this organization and now being the president of basketball operations. Like, he sees it. He gets it. So I don't know which way he's going to lean. I do think in an ideal world, what I would like to see is to keep the Jays together and to go acquire mid-level, like we talked about, the Jalen Johnsons of the world, the Bam Adebayos of the world, Nick Claxton maybe, like kind of the big man guy that can shoot the three ball, play defense, and like be good around the rim. And I think like Al Horford was that for them. Like Al was like such a good defender. He was like the father of the group, like also could shoot the three, be a stretch five, but it was just, I didn't think that it just didn't work out financially and what he wanted to get paid and whatever the case was. But if they can get like not a Giannis, but like a someone underneath that's a big man, then I think like that would be a good offseason change. I think it would be sad though, because like for the Celtics nation, like you love Derrick White, even though Derrick had a rough postseason. Like Derrick White was really, really upset with himself postseason, and like I get why he didn't play well. Like he was struggling until that final game, which at that point was just too late. But I think you may have to see like one of the heart pulses of this team go if you do decide to keep the Jays together and go out and get a big man.
Yeah. I mean, obviously too, like, the Marcus Smart move that hurt Celtics fans too. Like that was one of those ones that like emotionally was hard. It's like there are guys where like you feel that. And I think with Derrick White, it would be like similar because like everybody loves D White, and like right. Yeah, he's just been like such like a huge part of this team. And it's just like that would be hard to see, but it goes to show that like Brad Stevens isn't afraid to move people, even if it tugs at the heartstrings a little bit to make this team better.
Facts. And that's the beauty and curse of this business, like they know even with Jaylen, like if he were to go, I know he's creating some uproar and there like it's a split divide. People either hate him or love him. Like that's I'm listening to the Sports Hub and I'm hearing the calls to Beadle and Scott Zolak being like get him out of here, blow up the whole thing. He sucks. His attitude is terrible. And then the other people are like what he did for this season, he carried the team. So it is a split divide. But what we do know is, look, this team, specifically the Jays, won together. So they're not unfamiliar with each other and what it takes to get to that level. I just think when you look at that 2024 championship group, you had Drew Holiday was the best defender. You had Derrick White. You had Jaylen. You had Kristaps. You also had Luke Cornett. Like there were big men that were playmakers around the rim. And I think like Nini Garza is that spark, But like I think the priority has to be a front court guy, because you look back at, and it's never going to repeat of that specific roster. Every year in a championship win across the NBA, like, has its own personnel for a reason. I just wonder, and by the way, the Jays are getting paid big time. So it's like, who's going to be enough where you can trade and bring in a valuable guy? Or you trade a guy like Jaylen Brown, who's making 50 plus, like he's making 142 million in the next 2 years, like 71 each year. You better get a good bang for your buck, which you would with him. But again, it's all Tetris. It's like, okay, we bring in this guy, and on paper, there were even talks about like LeBron James being here. Personally, I don't want it. And LeBron's LeBron, right? Like,
that would be weird.
It would be so weird, but like, it would be a fake love. Like, he's hated Boston the whole time. Now he's, with the part of the Fenway group. Like, it would just be so bizarre. I personally wouldn't like it. It's not any dig at LeBron. I just think that is like too big of an ego even with Joe Mazzulla. I don't think that would work. Like, I just don't think it would work. So Brad has his work cut out for him to fit, like, who's going to work for keeping Joe Mazzulla, which I believe they are, who's going to work with Joe, who's going to understand like the foundation of this group, of this team, understand that Jayson Tatum is our number one guy. And, how can we balance a little bit more of the three and the inside game? And so, yeah, I still don't have an answer to it. I'm curious to see. I know The Athletic put out a post of kind of a poll with all the NBA players to see like which guys would go where, and they didn't have Giannis going here. So I thought that was kind of interesting that none of the players really had him going to Boston. Not that is, going to reflect what Brad is going to do, because he's like a little genie in his lab, just chefing it up. Like, I would love to be a fly on the wall with Brad. Like, this is where he eats. He's just like, all right, I'm ready to cook.
He's so intelligent. Like, he's just such a good basketball mind. And like, I just feel like he's just been tremendous in this role that he's in. And that's why I feel like, like, we think about how this needs to be a big off season for him, but like, I trust him to do it, because like, he hasn't given me a reason really not to.
Right. And what I really appreciated out of Brad, it was the awareness that he had. I feel like collectively across the board after Game 7, didn't feel like there was a lot of accountability. I felt like in terms of like post-game, like, yes, they're pissed off. Yes, it all just like collapsed within a snap of a finger. But not really one player or coach said, yeah, I got work to do. And like, to each their own. But when Brad spoke, I was waiting for someone to say, like, I'm pissed off with how that happened. And he said it. He's like, I'm pissed that we're not in round 2. Like, like the 76ers beat us, like, flat out. We got work to do. I just felt like Brad understands the accountability aspect of it, but also realizes on his front, like this group that we had wasn't enough to get us past kind of a play-in team. So I, as the GM and as the president, like, need to orchestrate that in the offseason and then lay it up for Joe, being like, all right, now it's your time to coach. So I think both are responsible to a degree, especially of what they do this offseason.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, accountability is good, and I think everybody should be held accountable in some capacity here, because obviously, no matter how you slice it, blowing a 3-1 series lead is bad, like, regardless.
Especially in Boston. Boston's like, I need an answer right now. What the bleep just happened? Like, we're spoiled by winning, and I say that in a positive way. But it's also like,
no, it's so true. It's so true. Like, we were even talking about it briefly earlier, like, the Boston community, like, expects a lot. Like, we hold teams to a high standard, and, you need to live up to that standard. And again, it's a good thing because we've seen so many championships from these teams that it's like, we just expect that now. But it was very frustrating that they weren't able to figure it out at home, because that was really, to me, where it felt like they had to win it and just not even take that series back to Philly in Game 6. That to me was where that kind of led to the downfall of this team. Game 5 to me was the most important game of that series. And I actually said prior to the series, I think the Celtics win this in 5. And it looked great early on in the series. It's like, all right, like, Game 1, like, was a breeze. Game 2 was like, all right, like, like, this may not be as much of a, blowout of a series. Celtics easily win this as maybe people thought. And then, like, when things started getting a little bit interesting, game 5, game 6, it's like, all right, like they're not playing good basketball right now. And when you have, Embiid back, that's a Sixers team that I think can do damage. And like you said, I think Embiid coming back just changed the whole trajectory of that Sixers team and what they were capable of in that series.
Which is so frustrating too, because Embiid was great. But even in game 7, he looked gassed. This man was exhausted. And like, this is where I do think Joe could have done a better job coaching. Like, bring him out. Like, make him even more tired. Like, bring him out in the pick and roll and make him play in that action where he has to defend. And I just don't think they capitalized on that. Tyrese Maxey, he may be one of my favorite players in the NBA. This guy is so explosive. He's so quick. He's so hard to guard. And I remember like before round 1 even happened, like we were kind of picking and choosing, like, who would you rather see in round 1, the Hawks or the 76ers? And I'm like, and people are like, oh, the 76ers. I'm like, I don't know. Tyrese Maxey is so lethal and he's so hard to guard. And on top of that, like, I know Joel Embiid was hurt at the time, but like Paul George is playing probably the best basketball he's played in a while. And then you have like those 3 being a little bit of a 3-headed monster. It created a problem. The only annoying thing is like, you're right. I still, even with those 3 together, think this was it was more of the Celtics losing this than like the 76ers taking it from, like, or winning it outwardly. Like, I just think they got comfortable. They were up 3-1. Shoot, I got comfortable. I was talking some ish, being like, all right, like, we got this in the bag. And
Same. Yeah. I was like, they're not going to lose 3 in a row. Like, we'll be fine.
Right. Which, by the way, they haven't lost 3 in a row in the regular season. Maybe, like, I have to, like, go back and really calculate, like, how many games 3 in a row. Usually, if they lose back-to-back, they are fantastic coming off. Like, their record coming off back-to-back losses is great. So I'm like, oh, shouldn't be an issue. But the game 5, game 5, I think the whole city of Boston got a little quiet and skeptical of, like, where is this team really at? And then game 7 just felt like a F it. We're going to just see, like, from Joe making that decision last second, it just felt like, let's just go out there and see what happens. And that's where it's like, I don't know if that was the right play. I don't know if that was the right move. But I don't think game 7 cost them. I think it was game 5.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think game 5 was really what switched the momentum completely in that series. And that's when Philly felt like we can actually win this. Because I think that was what the mistake was when it came to the Celtics, was like, you gave them that hope of, okay, we can win this series. And then they just didn't look back after that. And then it was just so disappointing that they got swept by the Knicks, because I was like, well, that makes us look even worse now that they kind of just rolled over against the Knicks. I mean, Embiid in that series was a completely different person than he was against the Celtics.
Yeah, and they were gassed against the Knicks. Like, Embiid exhausted all of his energy. They weren't supposed to beat the Celtics. So then they get past them, and then they're like, they probably were surprised at themselves. Like, oh, shoot. Like, now we're really exposed. And, and I honestly thought the Celtics would struggle against the Knicks. I just didn't. I don't think they had it on their bingo card that they would go out in the first round to the 76ers. Like that. And you know what? If they aren't humbled, shame on them. And they are. I would imagine that they are. But even from, like, a coaching standpoint and, like, trickling down all the way to Jaylen Brown, I know there were comments of JB. Everyone knows this, but, like, him calling it his favorite season. I personally don't mind him saying that, because I think that he did, like if he's looking at this as a personal kind of career aspect level, like, yeah, he had an opportunity presented itself where he's able to step up and be that number 1 guy, and he did that. I get where people are like, it's tone deaf because you just lost, and the first thing that you're saying is like, oh, this is my favorite season. I think that's a little taken out of context. I will say this. He did go on his Twitch and talk about, like, you know, how he's not getting the right calls. And I know that was like a frustration of his all season long. I don't think that was the time and the place to do it immediately after their loss. That's where the accountability factor. And I'm like, JB's one of his biggest fans. Like, I love his game. I love how he is active in the community. Like, I just think he gets it from a Boston lens. I just think afterwards on this Twitch stuff, and I don't even mind him saying what he wants to say. It just feels like, if I were to lose the way we did and collapse 3-1 after having carried this team the whole season, would I be tired? Yes. Is Jayson Tatum not playing and that kind of sucks? Absolutely. But I would have just been like, that's on us. Like, I need to be better in the postseason of carrying us to round 2 instead of blaming the refs or this and that. Like, that's where I just felt like not the right time. not the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. People were ripping Jaylen for that comment. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there's a time and place for it. And right after you lose the series probably isn't it. But like, I get like what he's trying to get at and like why he said that. But like, that I feel like just the way that he went about it probably just wasn't the best look for him.
And then media is gonna like eat it up when you make a comment. Like, I don't believe this, but media, we just, I mean, everyone, not only media, the audience like feasted on this, being like, oh, you're saying it's your favorite year without Jayson Tatum? Like,
yeah,
and that's the reality of what it looks like. I don't think that's why. I really don't. After being around seeing it, I do think that there is an ego with both of them. And a good, and kind of when you are a star player, you have to have that ego. I don't think it was a jab though at Jayson Tatum. I also think it wasn't the right time to just say that all. Like, just wait a week. Can we wait a week?
let this all settle. Let the fact that you guys blew a 3-1 series lead settle first before you go saying things like that. But like, I don't think he meant to say it as like taking a jab at Tatum of like, oh, like I was so happy when he like that he wasn't playing this year. Like, I don't think he meant it like that.
Right. I don't think he did either. I just think there's a lot of egos in this league. And, coming off of a season where he personally carried this team into the postseason. But really, their goal should not be, oh, hats off. We exceeded expectations, hats off. And we just collapsed against a not so great of a team in the postseason. Like, it needs to be going into this year. What is it going to take not to get to a title game, but to win the title? Like, and that's where I think everyone is on the hot seat, because like it's not good enough. And it's been, at this point going into 2026, 27, like it's time to win again. And I think that's Brad Stevens' mentality right now.
And that's good. That's a good thing, because yeah, right. Because that means I think he will maximize the offseason. I think he knows exactly what needs to happen in order for this team to get back there. But just watching that game last night, the OKC Spurs game, I was like, yeah, this Celtics team this year is just not where those teams are at. And that just is the reality. At the end of the day, I mean, those teams are insane, and they're both going to be really good for years to come. So look out, league. But I think the Celtics, it's clear that they have work to do if they want to get to the level that those teams are at now. And I do trust Brad to kind of navigate that situation this offseason, but we'll definitely have to see how that plays out.
He's done it before. I do think he'll do it again. I'm just curious to see if it's going to be a big splash in one of the Jays. Jayson Tatum's not going anywhere. If it would be,
exactly.
or keep the Jays and then kind of like have, like you said, our hearts ripped out by the Derrick Whites, the Sam Howishes of the world, and then getting a newbie that plays in the front court. We'll have to see, Gabby. I don't know. It's an interesting offseason right now.
It is. It totally is. And it's going to be an interesting offseason, I think, for a lot of teams, and just some of these big names that are being talked about, like where they end up. Like, does Giannis even end up getting moved? And if so, to where? I think that's going to be a big storyline of this offseason. But, I'm definitely looking forward to some of the chaos, and it'll be interesting to see, how different this roster might look next year compared to what we saw this year. Because I think, with Boston being championship city and the expectations now, they're going to have to do a lot to redeem themselves from that 3-1 lead blown.
Totally. I'm also curious to see what they do stylistically. The 3-point conversation. Like, I don't think Joe Mazzulla is and I say this in a positive way, but it also could, shoot himself in the foot a little bit. Like, he is a stubborn coach. He's very set in his ways. He knows what he wants. He knows what he believes. He knows what he trusts. Will he be willing to work with, if they get the right player personnel, to work it inside a little bit more and not just be so reliant on the 3? Again, I like the 3. I'm biased towards that. I'm washed up, but playing at my college days, like, I love the 3 ball. But that was my game. And I feel like Brad orchestrates teams that likes, or players that likes to shoot the 3, but also just having a little bit more leniency and balance of working it inside. So curious to see how Joe is going to coach this year too, with what they have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of crazy takes out there, like fire Joe and just like blow the whole thing up. That's definitely not what should happen here. There's definitely a lot of talent and a lot of core pieces still on this team. It's just a matter of getting them to that next level. And I'm excited to see what they do. But I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here and chat with me about all of this. I definitely could chat with you like all day. This has been so fun.
No, thank you so much. This was so fun. Gabby, you do such a great job. I mean that wholeheartedly. So I mean, you're very knowledgeable in what you're covering. You're very realistic. And you also call people out too, you know, like you keep it 100. You'll be like, all right, this needs to get better. So thank you for having me on. Listen, Boston, we're going to be okay. We got some tweaks and some work to do, but everyone just catch your breath. It's gorgeous outside. It's like 90 degrees out right now, which I'm here. No one is here. But everything's going to be all right. I think a couple of tweaks here and there will be all right. Gabby, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. Definitely going to have you on again. There's so much more for us to definitely chat about, but I like that mentality of everybody take a deep breath and relax and just let Brad Stevens do his thing, because I think he's gonna have a good off season, and I think people are going to be feeling a lot better about where things are at, hopefully going into this upcoming season. So
I agree. Gabby, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thanks as always, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and also check me out every day on Locked On Red Sox too. They are having an absolute roller coaster of a season, not in the best way. So I'm still here talking about them. So if you want to tune in there, you can check out both my shows wherever you get your podcasts, and I'll be here. And, you know, let's go Patriots, Bruins, Celtics, Red Sox, you name it. Boston sports best city. So, we'll have some fun, but thanks so much, Kayla, and thanks so much as always, everybody, and I'll catch you guys next time.